Hi, I'm Suzanne Bakker, and today I want to talk to you about what are challenges in managing leave in non-profit organizations. And as you can see, I'm using a presentation to do that so that I can be sure that I'm staying on point and use your time as effectively and efficiently as possible. But let me first tell you a little bit about who I am. I am Suzanne, and you can see me here. And it is my passion to help nonprofit leaders professionalize their nonprofit operational back end so that you can focus on the mission of your nonprofit and worry a little bit less about all the other stuff. And I do this using the experience that I gained in working in different nonprofit organizations, working in different countries, working on different topics, and also working there in different roles. And I've been doing that for 30 years by now, and that's the experience that I want to share with you in these videos here in this channel, and that I'm sharing in my courses as well. So I have weekly articles, I have a free Facebook group, and I have paid courses and workshops sharing all this experience that I had and the lessons that I learned reflecting on that experience. And so what am I focusing on? I'm focusing on all the fun stuff: organizational management, HR, labor law, finance management and admin, project design, fundraising, planning, and so on and so forth. Everything that you need at the back end of your nonprofit to be able to work on your mission and to implement well-designed projects with success so that you can achieve the impact in the world that you are after, the impact that is described in your vision, mission, and value statement. So this is what you are here to change in the world, and you need a good backbone, a good back end for that, well set up operations. And that's what I have been working on in several different organizations and what I am sharing with you in my articles, my Facebook group, here on YouTube, and in my paid courses and workshops. If you have any questions, always feel free to contact me. You can find my contact information here on my channel, and you can see my email address here as well. But okay, let's get started with what we are here to talk about today. What are challenges in managing leave in nonprofit organizations? First of all, let me go back to the starting point of leave. The right to leave is here to protect an employee's need to rest and to recuperate from exploitation. So this is why there is a right to leave in all the countries in the world, enshrined in the law and in custom, where employees have paid leave when they're working in an organization, and the same is of course true if they're working in a non-profit organization. So that right to leave is there to make sure that employees have the possibility to rest and recuperate from the stress of their work, and especially in non-profits this is super important, of course, because it's not only the work, the working hours, the tasks that are maybe draining people, that are eating away energy, but also, of course, the mission. Many nonprofits that I have seen, people get tired from feeling that they're working for an important mission that isn't always a happy one, like human rights defenders and so on and so forth, and that is draining them in addition to long working hours that they're keeping because the mission is so important, more important than their private life, sometimes more important than having a rest. And so the right to leave is especially important for people working in a nonprofit organization, because they tend to not really use the right to leave enough to rest and recuperate, to refresh from the stress of the work and the stress of wanting to achieve a mission that might be difficult to achieve in a lifetime. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to look at clear agreement functional system, checks, challenges, and then what can you do? That's what I want to talk to you about in my presentation. So first of all, clear agreement. The first step in managing leave in a nonprofit or in any organization is, of course, to be clear in the employment contract about how much leave there is to be used. Usually that consists of public holidays that are applicable in your country and leave days, and that leads to a total number of leave days or leave hours that is usually highlighted in the employment contract when somebody joins the organization. And so the number that is there is based, of course, on the law. Many laws have a minimum requirement for leave days. In the Netherlands, for example, that is the equivalent of 4 working weeks for that person. So if a person is working full-time, 40 hours per week, then it is 4 times 40 hours per week on an annual basis. And when the person is working 20 hours per week, then the minimum required by law in the Netherlands is 4 times 20 hours on an annual basis. So it depends on the number of hours that a person is working, what the exact days are, what the number of the days is, but the law prescribes a minimum, and that is the equivalent of 4 working weeks. But there is also, of course, custom, and there is also negotiation. So in the Netherlands, 4 working weeks is the legal minimum, but it's custom that people get a bit more. And of course, on an individual basis, some people are able to negotiate about extra leave days that they can use. And the only important thing here is that, of course, in negotiation, a person can negotiate for more leave days than the total of law and custom, but it can never be less than required by law, of course, right? The law sets the minimum, and that's the case in all the countries around the world. And so, as I said, usually the minimum is 4 working week equivalent plus public holidays. Sometimes that's translated into 2 days per month on a full-time basis. But the key is here that you know what is required by law in your context, what is maybe custom, what are the public holidays that are applicable, and that you include a total number of leave days or leave hours per year in your employment contracts with your staff. And of course that you highlight this also in your personnel guide, where you can be also referring to the fact that if the law changes, then of course your arrangements might also change, right? So that's important to create that flexibility by also referring to this in your personnel guide. So the next thing I want to look at is, okay, then you know how many days or hours a person has available for going on paid leave. Then you need, of course, a functional system to make sure that you record leave requests and the approval of that, and that you monitor how much leave is taken versus the number of hours that was available at the beginning of the year, and that you follow up any discrepancies or issues by checking what is happening. So if somebody has a certain number of hours leave available in a year, then when they want to use that, it's normal practice that they ask for permission for that, and so then you need to record that, the request and the approval. So there needs to be a trail for that, so that you cannot get into any disagreements about the facts, what leave was requested and was it approved or not. And then you use that information to monitor what happens. And then when you see that a person is using more leave or is almost using more leave than they might have, or if you see that they are lagging behind in using their leave, then of course you need to follow up. So that's why you need a system and why you need to monitor, so that you know when there might be a moment that somebody might either run the risk of not using enough leave or might run the risk of overusing the leave that they have, even though that is not really an issue that I see very often in non-profits. I see more the issue that people are not using enough leave. Yes, so what you need to check is indeed that your system is always up to date and that you have all your leave requests and your permissions recorded, and also in case something changes. It can happen that somebody is requesting permission to take leave, but then maybe they fall sick, or maybe COVID happens and then they can't travel, and maybe they then don't want to take that leave. So if something changes, then of course you need to make sure that that is reflected in your functioning system. Also, you need to check the planning of the leave. Yeah, you need to check that not everybody is going to be away on leave at the same time, so that maybe your whole office is closed between, 1st of July and the end of August. That might not be very practical. If you have projects that need to be implemented, maybe you have some donor deadlines for reports, maybe you need to prepare a new project proposal, so you need to check the planning of the longer term leave. It might be that somebody's just requesting leave for 1 day or for half a day. That will probably be more last minute and easy to check whether that is possible. But the real annual leave, when people go on their annual holiday, that is something that you need to make sure that is planned in advance, and that is also planned in a consultation with all the people on the team, so that there's always one person there who can do a certain task. Yeah, you don't want your whole finance department to be on leave at the same time, so that no payments can be made, no salaries can be calculated, no financial reports can be created, no budgets can be made. That is very impractical. Yeah, so you want to make sure that all the tasks can be implemented at a certain moment, while people are also able to go on leave and not worry about what is happening or what is not happening while they're gone. Then you also need to check the monetary consequences, and that is that if people are given leave at the beginning of the year, and if they don't use that, then you need to be prepared to pay that out. Yeah, in some countries you need to pay that out exactly. In some countries you need to reserve money for that, and that needs to be reflected in your annual report, for example, so that you are able to pay that out if and when needed. Yeah, especially if you are having people on a 1-year contract, and at the end of that contract they haven't used all the leave that was accorded to them, then you will need to pay that out, even if you will give them a new 1-year contract, because if you let them take the leave that is left over from one contract, if you let them take that on to the next contract, then this is considered to be one ongoing contract, and that might not be something that you would like to have. Yeah, so this is very important to also keep in mind, that if people are not using leave, then you might need to either pay that out or reserve money to pay that out, and reflect that in your statement of income and expenditure in your annual report. At the same time, of course, there are also monetary consequences if people are not taking leave, and maybe because of that they might fall ill. They might get a burnout, they might not be able to work anymore, and that also has a financial impact if you need to pay them their salary during that time, as is the case in the Netherlands. In other countries you might not need to pay them the whole time that they're ill, but still you might need to pay something when people are ill, maybe because of being overloaded by the work. And so there are many consequences, monetary, but also for the quality of the implementation of your projects, why it's super important to be really on top of available leave, use of leave, planning of leave, and then making sure that people actually use all the leave that they are entitled to in the year that they are accorded this leave. And as I said, challenges are especially that leave isn't taken, that people feel that there is never really time, that it is never really suitable for their project implementation for them to be away for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe even. So that is a big challenge, that people feel that they can't be missed. So that is a big management challenge for you. And then the other challenge that I see a lot is that sometimes people are not taking leave, but then when you remind them, then suddenly they want to take it at a moment that is indeed very inconvenient. Yeah, I'm sure that every project can handle the absence of a project coordinator for a couple of weeks at some point, but maybe not at all the points in that project. And maybe there are certain moments when it is super inconvenient for a project implementation, maybe for a project proposal deadline, maybe for a project reporting deadline. So there might be moments when you say, no, really, if you want to go on leave for 3 weeks now, I cannot really give you permission for that because of this deadline, because of these things going on in the project, etc. Yeah, and then that can also lead to a conflict because you then cannot approve it, and a person says, yeah, you forced me to take leave, you forced me to plan a holiday, now I have planned it, and now you say that I can't go. Yeah, so that is a conflict that I've seen. Or also of people who say, yeah, I've saved overtime and I have my annual leave, and now I can go on leave for 6 weeks, and actually I'm going this weekend. Yeah, and then you're wondering, like, that's not really giving me enough time to prepare for a 6-week absence of somebody. Yeah, so for that, what you need before such things happen is you need a clear policy. Yeah, you need to have written down the procedure, how people can request permission to use their leave, what are deadlines, what is allowed, what is not allowed, what are the different types of leave that you have available for people, etc., etc. Yeah, so for example, there are organizations where it is written down in the policy that leave requested can be a maximum of 3 weeks in a row. Yeah, so that if you want to go away for a longer period than 3 weeks, then that is in principle not allowed. Yeah, and also policies that describe that you need to request to use this leave. If it is a longer period, if it is like 2 or 3 weeks, then you need to request that certain period of weeks in advance. And also this policy then, of course, writes or stipulates that the management needs to respond to your request within a certain period of time. Yeah, so that when you request your annual leave, let's say you want to go on holiday for 3 weeks and you request this, let's say 2 months in advance, and then the policy would also stipulate that the management, for example, has 1 or 2 weeks to respond to your request, so that you have enough time to make all the arrangements for your annual leave, for going on holiday. Maybe you want to use this time to go on a course, for example, so that you have time to make the plans and to be sure that you can actually use this time. Yeah, so the procedure isn't only describing what the employee should do, what they are entitled to, or what their responsibilities are, but it also describes what the management should do, and in case they don't allow leave to be taken at a certain moment, then they, of course, the management will need to discuss with the employee about an alternative, right? So this is all stipulated in a policy on leave. That doesn't need to be like a 10-page document or anything like that. That can be just a 1-pager, but it needs to be clear what are the rules around policy, what are the rules around leave in your organization, what are the deadlines, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what happens if something isn't allowed, and what are the types of leave that are applicable, leave that is prescribed by law, leave that is agreed on individually, etc., etc. What happens to days or hours of leave that you're not using in this calendar year? Can you bring them to the next year or not? Are they paid out or not? Etc., etc. Yeah, and then another thing to do is to plan at the start of the year a meeting where you're going to discuss with everyone in the team when they are going to plan their longer leave. So when are they going to plan their 2 or 3 weeks of leave, so that you can coordinate this in teams and make sure that there is always somebody there who can do a certain task for a project or for the organization as a whole. Now, the example that I mentioned about finance, but also, of course, a project that needs attention, a donor that needs a report, maybe a sudden opportunity to submit a project proposal, etc. So you need to make sure that there's always somebody there who can answer to those situations, and that's good to coordinate that in the teams, who is going to take holidays when, and to plan that at the start of the year so that you can be sure that the holidays are spread more or less evenly throughout the year, and so that you know in advance when somebody is there or isn't there, and also so that you can be sure that people are paying attention to this and are in fact using their leave days to rest and recuperate. Yeah, that's important for the quality of the implementation in your organization as well. And it's super important to make sure that you discuss this with the team regularly. Maybe during a team meeting every month you have this on the agenda as an issue, whether people are taking leave or whether there are any issues with that based on your monitoring or maybe based on their own experiences. And make sure that you also make it clear to the team that taking leave is not a luxury, but that it's a necessity that's important for people's health, physically and mentally, and that you as an employer are interested in that. Yeah, that you're not discouraging people from taking leave, from taking time off, whether that's for 1 day, a week, 2 weeks, etc., as long as it's, of course, within the rules that you have laid out in your policy. But make sure that people are aware of that. Yeah, that you actually encourage them to invest in their health, physical health, mental health, by taking leave and by making that possible for them. Yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you very briefly. And yeah, the final message that I want to say is that I am here for you. If you have any questions about this or any other nonprofit management topic, nonprofit operational back-end issue, feel free to join my Facebook group and ask me anything. You can find the address here. You can also find the link in the information here on my channel. And of course, feel free to always contact me by email as well. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, and of course I'm looking forward to seeing you the next time in my next video about any operational back-end topic for nonprofits. Bye for now.